Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Tonight, I'm going to start off working on a library that I built a while back called XAMLTest. So this library is basically a UI testing library built around WPF. It was designed as a way initially of testing the material design in XAML open source project, which is a WPF theming library. Uh, WPF themes are not easy to test, and most UI testing libraries are designed to go through the accessibility layers to simulate user input, which is great when you want to test your app from that perspective. Where they fall short is when you want to actually test things about your styles, make sure your triggers work appropriately. Those types of things are fairly difficult. My favorite example is usually just telling people, hey, write me a quick UI test to verify that the color of the button is red. That's actually really hard in a lot of libraries because that type of information coming back is not trivial. Um, so this one aims not necessarily to simulate user input as much as to give you a means of easily testing UI components inside of the full WPF stack. So we're going to dive in there. Hopefully the brain teaser was interesting to people. If you didn't catch it, we'll check it again later. This one's hopefully fairly easy for most of you, but we'll see how it goes. So let's uh, also, side note, real quick, my brain teaser repository that I started putting stuff out for. There is now a stream of videos coming out, typically Wednesday morning for me. So if you're watching this live, like 14 hours ago ish, I think is when they're scheduled to come out, and I've got videos scheduled to drop every week for like the next 3 or 4 weeks, with several more in queue and that I'm wanting to do. So tonight's brain teaser is going to get added to this repo shortly. But if you haven't seen these or missed the brain teasers on the prior ones and you want to dive in, a lot of these ones here actually have direct links right to the YouTube video explaining them. So if you want a quick explanation of what's going on, understanding the brain teaser and the solution, there it is. Feel free to take a crack at it as well. And if people have suggestions of things that they would like to see or interesting things that came up for them, I'm always happy to see issues or pull requests and whatnot. Okay, XAML test time. Okay, so this one came in from Nikolai. So modifier keys not supported. And yep, pretty much. When I built XAML test, a lot of what I built only what I needed and then not a lot more. It started to get used in a couple extra places, so it's like, I guess we got to kind of start supporting more things. So this is the suggestion here of leveraging the formatable string. So for people who are not familiar with this class, when you put a $sign in front of the string in C#, most people think of that as an interpolated string, or effectively a nice syntax around a string format call. That's mostly true, but there's an exception case. If the parameter to the method where you're passing the string, or the target of where you're passing the string, is a formatable string, rather than just doing a string format and handing you back the resulting string, you can actually get this class instead, which is quite handy because this class contains all the information. What was the original format string? What were the individual parameters? And you can do interesting stuff like pull it apart and make it interesting. So you can actually make string content useful for things. So that was the suggestion here, with the implication being that if you do a key, that's a press, and a none is an unpress, which is interesting. I mostly like this. The only thing that's coming to mind is there's a weird case where maybe you want to press Control Shift and then let only one of them up. That's probably a pretty rare case, but yeah, well, the important part is trying to get this working. And then Nikolai also went through and opened a very nice looking PR for this, with the comment that it's not working yet. So we're gonna take a crack at seeing what we can do to actually make this work. So let's just dive into this guy and take a look. So send keyboard input test. That's the API in here. I'm gonna jump here. Okay, so we've got this much in here. We've got a class initialize, text boxes, away we go. Okay, great. Now I think, okay, so here is the test in question, is we would like to um, go here, and so the idea is we are setting the focus in text box 2, and then once the keyboard focus is inside of that text box, we're going to go Control or Shift Tab, which is expected. The Tab key should normally move focus between your text boxes, and in WPF, by default, the tab stops follow your XAML order. So you can control this. There's a tab stop property you can set on your items if you don't want it to go in XAML order. But XAML order oftentimes is pretty close to correct, so it's actually a reasonably good default. Rarely do I end up having to overwrite it. Most of the time, it's pretty much spot on because generally we lay out our XAML the way we think, and that's what we want. And then the idea being that after we've done Shift Tab, that should move the focus back to text box 1. So let's just run this real quick. I realize the PR description says it doesn't work, but I want to see it not work. And technically the none is a little superfluous on the end of this, because it really doesn't matter. So hands up, not touching the keyboard. Okay, so test failed. Not surprising, given that we expected it to. Okay. And okay, so that ended up not moving. I'm going to break this up just a little bit so I can, let's see, text box 1, focus, boom. We're going to do that. And then I want to do 2 here. I just want to confirm that the hard part with focus type stuff is the moment you start moving your mouse around, focus changes, and that gets to be real annoying real fast. So oftentimes it's best to capture the results of it and then inspect it. One of those situations where investigating the problem ends up causing you as much harm as good. Let's see here. Bool. Show me bool. Come on. Oh, did it? Oh, I'm in release mode. Ah, that's not helpful. Debug. So that's actually, so pro tip, when you compile in release mode, it turns optimizations on, and the compiler accurately ascertained that I wasn't using this value and went, well, you're not using it, I'm throwing it away. Thank you, but I kind of wanted it. That's what the breakpoint's there for. So debug does not have those optimizations, and you get to see all your variables. Interesting. Oh, I bet you I know where it went. Hang on. I bet you it went to text box 3, because if the modifier keys don't work, what probably happened is the tab key got sent, and then rather than going backwards a text box, it went forward. That would make sense. Unfortunately, makes sense. I think I saw it move. There it is. Okay, so that's okay. Okay, so that's the issue, is we got to get this guy to work. Okay, so let's take a quick gander down here of what's going on. So we already do this formatable string goodness. And we've got, let's see, we have modifiers. Let me just look at his PR really quick. So good with the tests. We just went with that. Test SDK being revved, good with that. Let's see, where is the, going to be down here. Yeah, so the visual element, so this is just adding in the modifiers and the modifier inputs. So those are the only additions down here. So this little guy right here, boom. So quick lesson. So this is a perfect example of leveraging the formatable string. So because the parameter type is formatable string, we get this object in. You'll note that we are able to do things like take this thing and say, hey, how many arguments does it have? Effectively, how many sets of those curly braces? And then we can just say, okay, give me the value that was inside of that curly brace. Right? Like the default behavior of a string of being formatted is great, but we can now yank this apart. So in this case, if it's a modifier keys, it creates one of these guys, slaps it in there. That works. That works. Perfect. Bippity booyah. Okay, so just in terms of the PR, that makes sense. Visual element mixins input. Let's see. Visual element mixins input. Where's the int cast? I saw that thing a second ago. What's going on here? Oh, it wants to simplify the collection. Oh, in case anybody isn't aware, I am on Visual Studio Preview. New version dropped recently. There's this cool new feature. I think I love it, but I'm not sure. These colored braces. They're growing on me. I wasn't sure I was gonna like them, but they're really growing on me. While we're in here, clean up our using statements. What are you trying to do? Simplify the collection? Yeah. See, I'm trying to decide how. Like, I realize that they're doing the exact same thing, but I really question if that's easier or better. Eh. Okay. And there's actually some cleanup that could be done here. So, for example, this thing here is wanting to take in an array. We're making a list just to do a to-array call. This could be simplified. Okay, so I lost my place. We want to pick this up on the other side, though. So this is all fine. That's all fine. So we want to catch it on this side. So Visual Tree Service input CS. Visual Tree Service input CS. So this is now on the server side. So you'll note when I ran the test, what it does is it starts up a blank WPF app and then injects the content into it. That way, when you're running your tests, unlike just like setting an STA thread in your unit test and testing it there, this actually spins a full WPF app, so you get a real app experience. And then it just uses gRPC to go back and forth between the two processes. And so in this case now, it is sending the keyboard data across, and it's got the modifiers here. One thing I'm noticing... I'm wondering if these things really should be put to... So I'm seeing keys and then modifiers. That's probably problematic. Because typically you're going to want these things to go together. But if we dive in here, we'll clean up usings again. Let's see. So there's your send modifiers. There's your send keys. They're basically doing the same thing. Get key press, which is down here. And you'll note this is doing... So this is the new one. This is the old one here of key up, key down. Of being able to send this across. Oh, and I guess the new analyzers are all hinting to me that we can clean up the unnecessary lambdas. Sure, we'll go that route. Oh, mwah. Autocode for the win. Okay, so this to do the message return from this, do not do what we expect. So these window messages are how events get propagated into your system. So inside of WPF, we often don't think about WinProc, WNDProc handlers, but we can actually register for them in WPF if you want to go that low level. And you can receive the messages coming in from the system. So when the user presses the key, Windows is going to pass these messages into our message pump, which is what the UI will then pick up and process as the user's typing or whatnot. So in this case, we're trying to effectively just simulate what the OS would send in. Right? Programmatically, we want to send a message into our app that would be the same as if the user pressed the keys. And this guy is failing. And you'll note this is diving down to somewhat lower-ish level with pinvoke level libraries because why not? Let's have some fun. I am curious if this is actually what we want to do. So, this guy here. Okay, so this is just the new message, and this guy is a big. By big, I mean we're talking. I guess there are a ton of enums in here, so it's not as bad as it looks. But so we build up some window messages. We come back here, we do send input. Send input then iterates over our Windows message classes, fires these guys off, and away we go. Which is great-ish. We could actually probably get away with a struct and avoid an allocation there too, but that'll be a different problem for the moment. Oh, Zero Cool, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. So down here, so I kind of have an ace in the hole for this one. There's already a library that kind of does this. So if we go and look at WinForms, so WinForms has the send keys API, which a lot of people are somewhat familiar with. But so you can go and peruse the source because it's open source on GitHub if you want to get it that way. Sometimes it's nice to just go through and follow inside of the source.net. Yeah, so here is a, let's see, here is a URL that is very, very difficult to communicate to somebody. Source period dot period net. Yeah, that's not confusing when you're trying to verbally communicate to anyone in any way. I assure you, that's a pain in the neck. But this API here does effectively go through and handle things like the shift, control, and alt. So I have a suspicion that I can mimic this because this SK event is, oh boy, I'm gonna need some help. Second. Google Translate to the rescue. I unfortunately am only an English speaker, so I'm hoping that question is roughly, do you speak language? Let's see. That, no. Try Spanish. Try Google Translate English. So in this case, so the question I believe translates to what are you doing or what are you working on? So working on a library called XAMLTest, and we'll just pop this in, which is a library for doing UI testing, specifically UI testing XAML controls in isolation. So this isn't necessarily UI testing an entire app. This is UI testing individual source.net. Browser doesn't like it. This is all about testing individual little bits of your XAML. So for example, you can end up writing a test like this where you just feed it a little bit of XAML and then you can act on the elements directly. So it lets you interact with the elements as though you were already inside of a UI thread because it's spinning up a full WPF app. So I'm gonna have to keep this open, aren't I? That URL is funny. Yes, it is. Okay. Let's go. Okay, so I'm kind of curious if I can just mimic. If I can mimic what Windows Forms is doing, I have a suspicion I can get this to work. Because these are just send keys APIs to know if they got a precedent. And so I think all I have to do is simulate this WM key down event. What is this start? What are these last two parameters? H and handle. Okay. Start new. Where did you come from? Start new character. And you come in from the outside. Interesting. Show me your invocations. Oh boy. So repeat. I don't think that's going to be an issue for me. Where does repeat come from? Oy vey. Yeah, so the send keys API, not to be messed with. Though I am noticing a very similar pattern in here. What is the difference? Unlike add simple key, the bitmask uses keys rather than scanned keys. The bitmap, oh, this bit here. Got it. I don't care about that. This is all I'm interested in mimicking. Okay, so let's try this. We want to send a WM key down with the appropriate thing. In this case, we're just doing shift. So we might even just be able to make sure that we get a hex 10, not a 10, a 10. Emphasis on that subtle difference. And if you note, wearing a hat today only because it is freaking cold where I'm at. I made the mistake of taking my snow tires off over the weekend, and whoo boy, as my colleagues told me earlier, we are now having second winter because we needed more snow. That was a joke. I love snow. I just don't love it on the driveway and on the roads. So rather than these ones here, because we're only interested in shift for the moment. So if we do WM key down, okay, key down, boom. And then this is, let me check what we were doing up here. Int pointer, int virtual key from key. So let's just take a quick gander. Okay, so that's the same key code there. That works. Okay. And then this lparam, we are just specifying zeros. And I'm curious what zeros actually translate to. Let's see here. All right, 1 second. So I am currently located in United States, Washington State. So you're looking at a map, kind of top left corner. Not Seattle. Everyone hears Washington State and they immediately think Seattle because that's the big city. I am on the other side of the state. So inland, away from the ocean, where there are trees and more interesting things. Seattle, the running joke is that it just always rains. Okay, so I am confused. Their lparam, hang on, their lparam was the key code, and their h is this boolean. Okay. Got it. I think we're okay. This is going to be false. Do you still enjoy grunge music? Yeah, to some degree. I will admit, like, 80s, 90s rock is probably my default setting if left to my own devices, but it depends. When I'm coding, oftentimes I will put on something without lyrics, or either that or something that I've heard so many times that the lyrics don't matter because it's easier for me to kind of tune it out and focus. I think this is what we want. I think it might be this simple. We're going to just do this. Oh, tab control. From your opinion, when you're choosing to use raw string literals versus verbatim strings, I thought raw string literals were cool, but I find myself not using them much and saw you using interpolated verbatim strings. Great question. Great question. So that was probably back here in the test. So the feature in question. So this test was initially written pre C#11. So worth noting that the raw string or literals are C#11 new feature. I have started using them more and more. The one thing that I really don't like about this sort of interpolated style is how everything ends up getting shoved all the way to the left. Now, with file scope namespaces, you know, it's only usually like 1 or 2-ish levels of indenting in a lot of cases, so it's like, yeah, not a big deal. But just the left indent is nicer. So if I was going to go through, and in fact that $sign is meaningless. So if we wanted to convert this, we can show what that would end up looking like. So you end up doing do 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 do, and then we go like this. We go like this, and the key thing here is those closing quotes indicate your indent level. So this ends up looking like this, but I've subtly introduced a change because now I don't need to escape the quotes anymore, because everything here, once I've declared it starting with the triple quotes, anything less than 3 quotes doesn't need to be escaped. And if for some reason I legitimately wanted 3 quotes in here, all I have to do to say, well, okay, don't treat 3 quotes as the ending sequence, I just add another set of quotes. And I can do 4. I can do 8 if I need. So you can just keep adding until it's unique. Generally, 3 is more than enough to make most things unique. It's the only time I've even come close is if you're doing like some sort of like templating language stuff where you're writing something that needs to be processed, and you go kind of round and round. Personally, I like this better in a lot of cases, but it's just that so much of this library's code was written pre C# 11, and I haven't been motivated to go back and change it. Yeah, the other thing I will point out as well is you can still do interpolation inside of here. So if we wanted to say, you know, how about int value, and obviously the best value is 42. So if we wanted to say inject, do something like this, right? So you can still do interpolation, but then if you end up needing to do, say you want to put together a JSON string, which is always the problem, because now I've got a curly brace in my string literal. Well, all I have to do is add another set of $signs there, and now it takes 2 sets of curly braces to do interpolation, and all my other curly braces are now just going to be regular literal characters. Yeah. So it's real. It can be really handy at times. So for what it's worth, I generally like the raw string literals. I just haven't found myself overly motivated to convert things over to it. Like if I'm writing something new, yeah, I'm gonna use it. But unless I'm doing that, it's like it's really nice, but I just, my brain is like, it's nice, but is it nice enough to rewrite to use it? Eh. Uh, does it do indenting on whichever triple quote is leftmost justified? Not any of them. It's the ending one is what drives it. So if I do this, now you can even see there's kind of this little, we zoom in, the IDE kind of puts this little bar here around it. That's what's determining the indentation level. And if I push this too far, then I end up with an error because it yells at me and goes, hang on, you've now indented too far. And I don't like you. I don't know why the IDE isn't flagging it immediately. But this should easily be a compile error because you can't unindent -4 spaces. Yeah, line does not start with the same white space as closing line literal. Yeah, so you should get, if you try to do a negative indentation, the compiler will yell at you and go, no, that's dumb. I don't do negative indents. Because negative indents are dropping of characters. But yeah, definitely enjoy doing this. And even in this case here, I might even go as far as to just indent this code a little bit further, just so that it's clear that this is related to up here rather than some new extra thing. But yeah, the key things to note, at least 3 quotes, and you can't have anything else on the same line with them. That is not allowed. And then you need the same number of quotes with nothing before them on their own line to terminate the string. And everything between them is then just a raw string literal. Hence the name. That's one feature where the C# team like named it fairly well. Sometimes people get clever with their names. Generally, engineers are not clever with their naming. What's the source to interpolate that? Seems like it'd be complicated. Source to interpolate that. I might need more context. Compiler. Like what? What's .NET's? Oh, oh, to turn this into an interpolated string, or the compiler to go through and parse this. Uh, oh, the code seems not terrible actually. Um, this is really just magical syntax sugar. The because when parsing your source code file, the compiler converts it down into something called an abstract syntax tree, an AST. So the compiler doesn't actually necessarily look at your source code in this form. Step one is to convert it to the tree and then act on that structure once it has some relationships to things. And so features like this end up just being a syntactic sugar that give you new ways to build up the same nodes in the tree. Because at the end of the day, the compiler, there's a feature called lowering where they take higher level features and try to break them down into common blocks so that everything processes the same. So if you're dealing with a string element in your code, all of the various ways of creating strings all kind of lower down into one path so that everything gets treated the same. Okay, I was gonna run that test because I am curious if it's as simple as just changing that message to WM key down, I'd be a little shocked, but I'd also be a little happy. Oh, not that simple. Not that simple. Focus is here. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Okay. So. Let's see here. I am curious, knowing that the sorry, 1 second. I've got a friend who I got a friend who's having a family thing going on right now and just checking on him to make sure everything's okay. Okay. Because this guy here is sending this, I'm kind of wondering if we need to send a true for the Boolean. So let's see, because they pass in a bool and then convert it to either a 1 or a 0. So we could just send a 1 or a 0. That doesn't seem bad. Okay, 0, 1, done. Test again. Suppose I should probably test and validate that I'm actually getting like all the way into that code path, but we looked at it. I'm pretty confident. Robert, always a pleasure. Oh, no. Focus moved into the wrong text box. Grumble, 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 grumble. Okay. I want to make sure we're actually okay. Let's just make sure we're getting all the way here. So this is where things get a little funky. So I'm going to be debugging this unit test. This code over here that we set the breakpoint in is running inside of that WPF host app, which is a different process. And so when this thing fires up, XAMLTest actually does some magic when it sees the Visual Studio debugger attached to the unit test to automatically attach it to the XAMLTest host that it fires up. How long do you think it takes to become an average developer if able to study and practice, say, 10 hours per week? That's a good question. So take what I'm going to say with a bit of a grain of salt. So people learn people learn at different rates. So this is going to be a kind of a sweeping generalization, and understand that for some people it may be faster and some people it may be slower. That's not necessarily to say that somebody's necessarily smarter than another, but like for example, I've got a friend who's incredibly good at sports, and it's very frustrating because he picks up a random sport and he's immediately good at it. And me, anything I want to play, I am I am not as coordinated or as athletic as him, and I have to work a lot harder at it, and it takes me a lot more hours to even come close to the same level of skill. So same thing kind of applies in programming. At 10 hours a week, I guess the real question is how many hours do I think it takes to become an average developer? Um, because we teach a class at university that's targeted at third and fourth year university students. Um, it's I believe 10 weeks long with 5 hours a week of class time and 10 hours a week roughly of homework. And again, some people will burn through the homework quicker or not. So that for that class, that's 15 hours a week at 10 weeks. That's 150 hours. And I would say that the students that come out of it are not quite average level, but they're well on their way. They're well on their way to being there. Because we have some students that come out of there that are, top of the class, clearly very bright students, and they are probably somewhere slightly above junior level developers. So 150 hours of that class, but I will say that class is targeted at third and fourth year computer science students. So those students have already put in a couple years at least of CS courses learning. So they aren't starting from zero. They're coming at it from another one. Um, but I think I would say somewhere in the order of like probably at a minimum 250 hours, depending on background and past experience. Minimum 250, probably closer to 500 hours. Um, but again, that's going to depend a lot on the person and what they're doing. I've seen some self-taught people go to town on it, especially people who go through like the coding boot camps where they crank people out in a few months, um, and do quite well. I talked with a guy recently who had zero prior programming knowledge until he kind of watched a couple of videos on YouTube. Hi, and then started trying to just do stuff on his own, and then went through a coding boot camp, and he was easily junior or better level. And I think he'd probably be under that 500 hours. I don't know how much time he spends into it, but he was very passionate about learning and loved doing it. And that's really, I think, the bigger factor is how much you want to do it. But yeah, I think bare minimum 250 if the stars align, you've got good past experience, and you're doing exceptionally well, probably closer to 500. The other thing that does make a big difference too, especially when you're starting out, is who you're working with, because the same hours being spent trying to learn something on your own versus if you're working with like a team. My experience has been that if you're working with a team, you're going to go and learn a lot quicker, especially if you've got really good people on the team to help train and mentor you. That's going to make a big difference. Um, I was very lucky in my career. I was able to land an internship and got put under a couple really good senior developers that spent a ridiculous amount of time helping me learn. Um, I'd like to think that it worked out well. I don't know if they would say that, but from my perspective, it worked out great. If those same hours, if paired with somebody else, or if at least some number of those hours are paired with somebody else for like teaching and mentoring, it'll probably accelerate the learning process. Okay, something. I wanted to debug this, and I wanted to catch my breakpoint on the other side. That's what I wanted to do before I ran off on my rabbit trail. And by the way, I love questions. Do not ever feel bad about asking questions. This is just so much fun, though. The fact that I'm debugging a different process than what my unit test started as, just mwah, mwah, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so this guy goes in here. Okay, so we do hit this. We do hit this. We do build up a message. Great. We take a look at the data in this message. Come on, give it to me. I see a 1. I see a hex value of 10. This is user32 send message. What do you do exactly? Okay. Not seeing something. Not seeing something. Okay, so that works. That sent shift. I do wonder if maybe this modifier should be part of the keys collection. Oh, hush. Hush, I know you're unhappy. Sends the key in question. Great, great, great. This is also one of those cases that when debugging, because this thing is trying to simulate keyboard input, it's going to be failing. So it wants to send a none. Pro tip, these methods actually spoil tonight's brain teaser. Oh, if anybody's interested in here, real quick. Where'd my, let's see. Let's go. If people are interested, tonight's brain teaser brought to you by New Branch. Let's see. Did I not push my branch? Oh, look at that. I didn't push my branch. Quick, just to make sure I'm not about to reveal the solution. Stage, amend, push, submit. Okay. So, if anybody wants tonight's brain teaser, there it is. Answer forthcoming later. This one is somewhat simple. And if anybody's been paying really close attention, we actually stepped over the answer a few moments ago. If you're really confused, feel free to back up and double check. Okay, so this thing is firing off. Okay, I kind of want to go back to the send keys API. Have keys shift, add event, have keys unknown grouping. Add message for virtual key. See, and this is the thing. All it's doing is adding in these SK events. I'm noticing this is called H. And I am not familiar with what this gets used for. Send keys process hook. Interesting. I'm a little curious because I'm not. H and W are not the same letter last I checked. And I'm just curious. I'd love to get down to the same underlying API. The other thing that I'm not sure about is if they're supposed to be sent as separate keys or not. I'm a little curious about that as well, because I could see them needing to be sent together. Let's go take a quick gander while we've got you open. What? What? You're not gonna make me go look it up elsewhere, are you? Jerk. Let's jump back. So that's just setting it there. That's just setting it there. Okay. I think what we want, WM key down, but I think I want to look up VK shift. So when in doubt, we're going to ask the Googles. And by Googles, I clearly mean Bing. VK shift. The other thing we can do is we can go on a little GitHub spelunking adventure. The virtual key code of the non-system key. Such as the right hand alt and control keys. Oh boy. I see. Confusing. Let's see. We're going to check the sys command one because that's what Nikolai had set before. Because the auto repeat feature, more than one key down may be posted before a key up message is posted. Blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Don't care. We're just trying to simulate. Formerly known as a system. When the user chooses the maximize button. That's exciting. I don't think this is what we care about. Because this is wanting a very different sys command. Hotkey, scroll, key menu, maximize. Yeah, I think we want the key down. Have you gotten off the new Bing waitlist? Yes. I did. I did. And it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Like I haven't had a chance to play with it in any real capacity. I only got in fairly recently. And I keep wanting to spend some time playing with it, but as far as I can tell, I haven't seen a big difference between it versus ChatGPT. But again, I haven't spent a lot of time playing with it, so take that with a big grain of salt. So we want to know the C virtual key codes. Let's see. Because in our case, we really just care about shift. Yeah, that's pretty much what we want. Left shift, right shift. It's not something stupid like that, is it? No. No, there's no way. There's no way. I don't think. Reserve, do not use. Great. Context. The previous key state, the transition state, blah, 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 blah. More details, see the key. Okay, keystroke message flags. Contains additional information. This information includes a repeat count, scan code, extended count. Okay, so this is our L param. So the first 15 bits are the repeat count. So me changing that 0 to a 1 was going to do nothing. Okay. Let's see. Bits 25 through 28 are reserved. Extended key flag. Interesting. Manipulates the context code flag. Okay, I don't see a... You want to distinguish these keys. Okay. I don't think I care. Because this is parsing it. So this is when I receive a key down event. I parse my W param and then the L param key flags, scan code, extended key. This is just bit math. I don't think we care about any of this. Yeah, so short version, keyboard send keys too fast. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. Like one of the guys I used to work with, he told me about an interview he was in where the interviewer asked him to describe in as much detail as he possibly could what happens when you press down, like, I think it was the D key or something. And he started going into insane level of details all the way back to the hardware and working his way back. And the interviewer kind of cut him off. He's like, no. Okay, that's too detailed. Come up to the application level. It's like, oh, okay, and then proceeded at that level. It's like, well, you asked for with as much detail as possible. What were you expecting? Okay. But I don't see anything in here that seems to indicate what we would have done wrong. Now, I do wonder if KF up, transition state flag. I do wonder if this is what we need to, whether the pressing key, the flag is always set to 0 for key down. So the transition flag should always be 0 for key down. So real quick, let's go back here. We know now that this really should be a 0 because that's just going to manipulate the repeat count for a key down message. And I think I want to try. What was it? What was it? Wasn't it left shift? Hang on. The layouts and name is taking into account the shift in caps lock keys and generates a blah 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 blah. Great. May need to determine of another key besides the one, for example, of word processing. Shift end. The application can use oh, interesting. So if this generates a this might be proving to be more difficult if something's going, because if we send a command that says, hey, the tab key is pressed, and then it queries back to say, okay, what's the state of the shift key, that's going to be a problem. Okay, got it. This may end up being a bit of a problem then. But I keep coming back to WinForms can do this. WinForms can do this, which means it's possible. It means it's possible. Here. It means it is possible. Shift key for use with VM scanned. Where do you get used? Okay, add simple key. Have key shift. This just adds that in. Add events. This queues up the event. What do you do with the event queue? Show me the event queue. Something has to dequeue. Where's the dequeue? There's the dequeue. Okay, so where are we? We are inside of SendInput. So we've built up a queue. We're going to dequeue the items. We pull the event off. We are not a char, so we fall into the else. We are not a key up. Is extended key. I don't believe we fall into that. It's setting that. Otherwise, it sets the lparam, and then it's send input. One current input. What is current input? User input, which... Okay. With you so far. Let's see. So dequeues the item. Sends input. Current input, input size, event sent. Send only current input 0. I assume even though it's tracking this event sent, it's doing 1. I just love comments like this. Thread sleep 1. This, sometimes when you're digging through old code, you can find some gems where you look at it and go, wait, what? I was listening to a story another developer was telling about in an interview he had with a guy who worked in some financial institution. And the guy who worked in the financial place was telling him that it was impossible for them to upgrade off of some old mainframes into the cloud because some functions that they were doing for financial calculations required particular bugs in the mainframe that they were running on in order to work properly. And if the code was ported off of said mainframes, it would stop working. And it made me twitch a little bit. Okay, so we do a send input, right? We do a send input, window handle, message, right? 1, 2. Now I'm curious how they're, because this is just boils down into here, send message, and we are down in user 32 land. Going back and double checking. This is send input, not send message. And I'm wondering what the difference is. This is user 32 interrupt. Interesting. Okay, so let's back up. Nope, that's the brain teaser. Wrong Visual Studio. Try again. So do you have... Interesting. So if we want to mimic what send key is doing, got it. We would need to do this instead. Probably. Why is it saying those definitions are hidden from me? Just bounce out. Okay, stop debugging. So in this case, if we wanted to do that, user 32 send input. So this might be what actually needs to be built up. As we need a thingy here that we'd send a 1. We'd send an array of what was that thing? Inputs. user32.input class, or more likely a struct. And just the coloring, it says struct already. And then CB size, this thing would end up being where does input size come from? Oh, that's pretty straightforward. So we would end up doing that. And don't tell me. Let me guess. You're unhappy because you want unsafe. Yeah. So we're already doing wacky stuff. Let's we're gonna go crazy. We're going the whole 9 yards. Okay, so this is probably what needs to then happen. What is on you? That's not the right. Is it? Yeah, it is. Okay. What do you have on you? Inputs and type. Type of input event. Input type, I assume keyboard. And then inputs is going to be something there, and then we're going to have to feed it through. Got it. So this is probably going to be a little more involved, and I may not necessarily attack it right now. But, Nikolai, since I know you're watching this later, system window form send keys.cs line 631. I think this is what we want to mimic. I think the issue is I wrote it using send message, not send inputs. And in order to make this work, we're going to need this to actually behave like the Windows form send key. I think is what we want. I'm mildly tempted to just reference WinForms inside of this, but that's just so disgusting. I always hate when I have to reference Windows Forms inside of a WPF app. The other thing is XAMLTest. Every time XAMLTest takes a dependency, it makes it a little bit harder for it to consume, say, a user control that has a different version of that same dependency. So I've been trying to avoid allocating extra things. But I think that one there, I'm going to put a comment here. Let's see. I think if we want to make this match WinForms send keys, the issue is with is with user32 send message. We probably want to look at using user32 send input. Similar to what is done here. That's not the right link. Let's try that again. That one. Preview. Good. Comment. Okay, so I think we're gonna roll with that for now. We'll let that one sit for the moment. Okay. Let's circle back to material design, because there is a okay. So first of all, there is a pull request that I would like to get in place. This pull request is actually what prompted the XAMLTest change, because this was going through and fixing this issue. Effectively, the I-beam was not showing up when you tabbed into the boxes, which is problematic. This has been kind of a constant problem just with the way these templates are set up. So there is that. So the preview looks great. Let's take a quick look at the code in here. He also wrote a nice UI test. So we're going to start with the UI test first. Move it over so my big head isn't in the way. And we're just going to look at the tests because I find it easiest to review the tests first. Stack panel with a text box, password box. Is password revealed? Effectively, is password revealed just turns off what pseudo security there was in the password box to begin with. Tab forward. Send keyboard input tab. Fix me shift key plus seems to be unsupported. So this is, so maybe we will wait to come back to, we'll review this, but I think based on the fact that this is being built under the assumption that the XAML testing is fixed, this test is going to be somewhat difficult to fix, but let's take a look at this. Okay, so what do we got? Text block, static resource, because this is in the smart hit. Oh, this is the demo. Let's actually look at the change. So this is in a behavior that gets added. So in WPF, there is a concept of behavior classes. These are things that can get attached to another UI control. They basically give you a nice, easy way of having a reusable component. So imagine if you were to wire up some code behind logic for one of your buttons, but you wanted to then reuse that same code behind logic for other buttons as well. You would have to go and do similar logic. Behavior is just a way of boxing up that code behind logic into a nice reusable component that you can just plop it into whatever button you want. Let's see. So get is password revealed, finds the appropriate one. At some point, we may want to make these. I have great aspirations of parsing our templates and doing things like generating constants and things like that for this so that these things generate compile errors rather than being magic strings. But that's fine. So if the old focus it matches the revealed password box and the new focus matches the top box, we do a traversal request. And this is on got keyboard focus. Got it. So when the keyboard focus moves into the password box, we are going to go checking and see if we are actually inside of this. Perfect. So this, I think, looks good. I'm going to put unapprove on it. I think I may hold merging it for now until spending a little time on the XAML test. But the other thing in question is the 4.8 release, which I do want to try to get out soonish, possibly this week. I can't decide. So I have selfish reasons for wanting this particular bug fixed because this actually affects a project I am working on in my day job. So the idea being that material design in XAML, typically when people use it, there's a couple ways to approach it, right? The standard approach in the, like what's seen in the demo, is you bring in material design in XAML. You just want nice material design theming in your app. You want to turn it on. You don't want to think too hard. Great. Got you covered, right? You slap in a theme telling what colors you want. You say load up all the styles. You're off to the races. You're done. Hallelujah. It's all great. The thing is sometimes people don't want material design to drive. So specifically, if maybe you work for a company, hypothetically, that has their own designers, and the designers like to give you UI design and say, no, it should look like this. Well, unless they're giving you UI designs that exactly line up with the material design and XAML stuff, you might have to do some styling yourself. Not horrible, like that's what's expected. But it does mean that the ideal use case then is rather than just saying, yeah, style all my controls for me, it's like, don't style everything for me. I want to, you know, kind of a la carte pick and choose what I want from your library. And that's what this bug is all around. Effectively, if you bring in the combo box by just referencing the combo box styles, and then go through and, because there's a full repo here, and then go through and try to reference it, you end up getting this cannot find resource named blah blah blah. Like, oh, that's not good. So um this is fine for like Adam calls out that it works fine for checkbox, radio button. It also works fine for regular button. I tested that one too. But one, I'd like to fix this bug for selfish reasons. Two, I would like to fix this bug in such a way that I end up with a test for all the styles, not just the one failing. So, short term, what I would like to do is get a fix in for this and get some hard coded tests to test a bunch of the common cases to make sure it's fine. Long term, I really, really want to build that tool that rips through our styles and can process them and parse them so that we can start doing some sort of like pseudo code gen, because that's really exciting. For people who are interested in source generators, yeah, sure, save, whatever. The WPF, specifically XAML, is a little more problematic to do source generators with, because the way WPF projects compile, there is a markup compile pass that occurs before the C# compiler occurs. And the problem is the source generators that Microsoft released for C# occur during the C# compilation pass, which means that if you want to do any sort of XAML generation, you're too late. You missed the boat. So I would like to build me a little system where I can actually do that, because it's just a matter of injecting the appropriate things earlier in the pipeline. So the way MS Build works is it collects up all the XAML files, feeds those in to the XAML compiler, does let's see, markup pass 1, markup pass 2, then C# compiler. If you inject before the markup passes, you can gen your XAML files and off to the races. And this is how things like T4 have worked for years and decades. I don't know how old T4 is. It's old. But that's how it's been able to work, because it effectively does the generation ahead of time. And that's all I want. I don't need, like, as I'm typing code generation. That's not what I'm after. I'm very happy with run once, even manual invocation to gen it. That would make me happy enough. Okay, so the Kraken. We need to release the Kraken. Okay, so I've got this branch sitting over here. And what I did is I started writing tests. So who cares about the bug? Let's write a test to show that the bug exists first. So for anybody doing this, this is a generalized way of software development called test-driven development. So when somebody says there's a bug, step one is write a test to reproduce the bug, which that's an easy sentence to say. That is not always a trivial operation. But the idea is, if you write a test that reproduces the bug, then you go and beat your code into submission until your test passes. So you want to start off with a failing test and get to a working test. And this test, no work. Oh, I didn't push my change. Oh, bad me. That was dumb of me. Okay, well, I know what my change was. So going back to the question from earlier, there's our 3 little ticks. In order to make this bug reproduce, because I started with this and I went down this path, and I will just show this because I was like, okay, let's reproduce the bug. So as the bug indicates, we load up the bundled theme in our app.xaml. We reference a single control set of styles. In this case, we're going to be using combo box because that's the control name being passed in. we generate an implicit style to combo box because the implicit styles for the controls all live in the defaults one. None of them live down in the specific one. So this sort of replicates what's being done in the defaults. And then you'll note this test passes. And I was like, the bug doesn't reproduce. Well, the one step that's not obvious from the bug report is you actually need to do this. So we actually want to go, perfect example. We need to make this an interpolated string. So we go like this. And whoops, I've got curly braces. So I go one more. Oh, look, problem solved. And now to do the interpolation, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do control name, which again, this will be combo box. And I'm going to do like that. So literally, I'm just going to insert a combo box. And what should happen is this combo box should have its style looked up and found here, because this is an implicit style with a target type of combo box. And then because it's based on the material design one, this test should now pass, or should now appropriately fail. Because currently failing test is success. Okay, test fails. Huzzah, everyone's happy. I'm happy. Okay, this thing crashes. And I think what I would like to do, I tried to push an update. We'll do both of those while we're in here. Why not? We'll save Dependabot a little bit of effort. We'll just rev those testing packages. Okay, so all I did there for XAMLTest is the previous error that was coming out of here was not real useful. It was just saying the remote process crashed. That's not helpful. Like, it's nice knowing that it's crashing, but it would be much better to actually see why it's crashing. So, I'm hoping this fixes the bug because I pushed a XAMLTest update out without really testing it. So, if this doesn't work, we just roll back and everybody's good. But the XAMLTest update basically just expanded a try catch so that it appropriately will catch the exception and log the error rather than just dying a painful death. Because I still want it to be read, but I want it to be read with a useful error message. That's the goal. Let's go Test Explorer. Where's my Test Explorer? Whoop! There you are. You sit, stay. Good boy. Am I the only one who talks to my development tools as though they're pets? Because they, like, Visual Studio kind of feels like my minion. Okay. There we go. No longer, suck. Stop it. Okay. No longer a useless error message. Now at least we're getting something reasonably better. And this now matches the bug report, right? Cannot find resource named material design themes WPF combo box pop-up. Perfect. So now we actually have to have the hard work of fixing the error, because that's the fun part. So we've got a test. We can reproduce the failure. Perfect. Now we know that if we make a change and this goes green, at least this one instance. Now, what I would really love to get to, and like I said, I don't think we're going to do it as part of fixing this, is I would like to get this, rather than being inline data, I would like to have something that goes through and checks all of my implicit styles. Right? So rather than this being just a hard-coded list, I want it to be a generated list. That's the gold standard. Right? That way, as we add new stuff, I can validate that they all work. Okay. Because this is just using combo box, material design combo box, but maybe there's going to be another one. So, step one, let's go a spelunking, and let's go find this thing. So step one, we're going to go to the correct project, not the one that I opened. And then all the stuff is stored underneath themes. And in this case, we're going combo box. And okay. So the style we started with that we referenced was material design combo box. Ooh, where are you? Where are you? There, that guy. Okay, so this is the style we're using. And somewhere in here, there is a static resource pointed at Material Design Themes WPF combo box. Or I'm sorry, Material Design Themes WPF combo box pop-up. Maybe that's a better thing to hunt. That is interesting. That is very interesting that that string doesn't show up there anywhere. Okay, so now the question is why? Let's just hunt the whole. Okay, that's more interesting. I really wish this thing came with line numbers. The usefulness of line numbers here it cannot be overstated. Yeah, because XAMLTest tells me, hey, you did this, and that's what triggered the error. It's like, well, yeah, no freaking duh. But that doesn't help me. Because it's I mean, I can see it's loading template XAML, so it's going to be buried in here. The material design themes, WPF. Let's just hunt combo box pop-up. How many times does that guy actually occur in here? Okay. Okay, so we've got some references here, and we've got some obsolete guys here. And it's very possible that the thing in question is going to be just WPF colon. Because this is the fully qualified type name, I kind of suspect that's what it's going to be. So let's just take a quick gander at all of these. That's in an obsolete bit. That's in an obsolete bit. That's in an obsolete. The obsolete ones shouldn't be getting referenced anywhere. This is still existing. Okay. This is also still existing. Well, this is hard to read. You need to be formatted differently. Less long form. Okay, so the pop-up classic template is definitely leveraging it. There's the control in question, classic mode true. So is this the... We should figure out what template. Let's start. Let's go. Let's back up then. Let's go back to the style. Look at the template that's being applied by said style. Okay, so here's our style. We're looking for a setter on the template property. Where are you? Template. Okay. So there's the template. So this is the template in question. Material design floating hint combo box template. That's the guy. Okay, so inside of here, then, we are looking for combo box. Interesting. That jumped me immediately to there. Okay, so I need to stop doing this, and I need to do... let's see. We need to start marking some line numbers so that I can stop losing my place. Okay, so the style is here. So Control KK puts a bookmark. Yeah. Oh. Whoop. Bookmark. Bookmark's your friend. Okay. We're going to come down here. We're going to grab the template. There. Control KK. Bookmark's your friend. Okay. And then more importantly, you can navigate from the bookmarks. So, there. So, pro tip. Use bookmarks. They are happy and wonderful things for navigating big files, especially when you're like me and you're getting lost. Okay, so, and then now that we're in here, now we want to go after combo box pop-up. So this guy here exists. Why? Classic mode is now obsolete and has no effect. So we can kill that because that's not doing a darn thing. Pop-up content classic template. This guy here. Oh, is it this? Is that the guy there? Because there's a static resource. There's targeting the... I have a strong suspicion this guy here is our culprit. Let's test that theory. So if we just drop this and then rerun our test. I'm... Got him! Got him! Okay, so... Okay, but we know where the change is. So I guess more importantly, bookmark. That's the guy. We want to hold on to him. So that's the thing that's failing. Hey, Justin Bieber, thank you. It's the company I work for in Teletech. They gave them out last year, 2 years ago, something like that. It's actually one of the warmer beanies that I own, and it is freezing cold here in Washington State. We got, and admittedly, it's my fault. I took my snow tires off this weekend, and then it promptly got really cold and snowed. So, okay, so this is clearly the failure point. However, this failure does not occur when running with all of the defaults. So, the question being, why does that work with the defaults? Right? So something in here is triggering on that. So I would like to hunt usages of this guy, because this says based on, and what that thing is saying when it loads is that it cannot find anything with that key. But something clearly has a key on this thing. Okay, so now we're going to get here. So let's go take a little spelunking opportunity here. I am looking for anything that has a... So there's that style. Boy, I'm just so surprised that that fails out like that. I'm probably the one who implemented that. So let's test this then to make sure we haven't broken anything else. So this should be a fairly easy thing to go and test. We'll just fire up the demo app, go to the combo box page, and verify they all still work. We also have quite a few UI tests as well that we can use to verify that we haven't broken the combo box. So, combo boxes. Looks good. Looks good. Looks good. Looks ugly, but as expected. Yeah. Yeah, so basically that guy there is the problem child. So, I mean, that's a success. That's a success. Okay, so we're going to go through, and I would like to... So we've got the fix. We've got the fix. I am going to do a couple things. I would like to change this up such that I cover all of the default thingy-mabobbers in each of these cases. So if I open up defaults, right, and I go and look, and I go down here. So effectively, what I would like to do is convert this into a set of Well, I don't think I want to do all of them. So we're going to do some, and by 1 second. Gotta just make sure I don't have anything bad open on my screen. That'll work. Okay. Whoop. VS Code. Okay, so paste. Boom. There we go. There we go. So I'm just going to quick scan. A couple of these I don't care to test. Don't care about you. Data grid cell I don't care about. Don't care about these. I only want the top level control. Expander, grid splitter, group box, label. List box item I don't care about. List view item I don't care about. Menu item I don't care about. Rich text box, scroll bar, scroll viewer, slider, sure. Toggle button, toolbar. I think I care about tool tip I don't really care about, and I don't care about tree view item. Okay, so we're gonna do some little regexy coding. So here's the goal. I have inline data, and I want this to parse into this. That's the goal. We're gonna just regex our way to victory here. Okay, so we would like to match on. First of all, we turn on regex. Let's see, white space or oh, S is white space. There we go. Okay, and we're gonna start from beginning of line, white space, any number of repetitions. We're gonna go with style, but you have to spell style correctly. Target type equals quote. Let's see, backslash Bing, X colon type. And actually, we could probably just make this simpler and just go with X colon type. So we can do X colon type, white space character, and then we're going to do a named capture group. Control. And that's going to be word character, repeat, thingy mabobbers. And then we're going to do, I guess, backslash closing thing just to make sure we pick that up. Then we're going to do any number of characters, any repeat, and then we're going to hunt for the static resource bit. So backslash static let's see, spelling counts. Static resource, and then we'll do white space character, and then we're going to do another named capture group. And we're going to call it, I don't know, style. We're once again going to do word characters, any number of repetitions. And then we're going to end with a closing curly brace. Okay. We're going to grab that. And then we're just going to, anything to the end of the line. We're going to go from beginning of line, grab everything. Okay. So we've got those. Really long, ugly regex, but not overly complicated. What we would like to do down here is we would like to replace it with inline data. But again, you have to spell inline correctly for it to work. Let's see. That quote, $ control, close quote, comma, quote, $ style, close quote, close paren, close attribute. And then we hit replace all. And that didn't quite go the way I wanted, so we hit the undo button. Do I just have to reference it by index? So 1 and 2. 0 is the entire match. 1 will be the first capture group. 2 will be the second capture group. That looks much better. So, little bit of regex, little bit of awesome. Booyah. Was that quicker than manually typing it? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But was it more fun and did it feel cooler? Absolutely. That went quick. That went, oh, you didn't run all the tests. That's cheating. Run all the tests. There we go. So we're just going to make sure that at least the default styles work for all of these controls. And I'm going to call that good enough for now. Oh, looks like we got another one that doesn't work in isolation. We'll go look at which ones failed in a moment. And then, because in an ideal world, every control, at least every style should work in isolation. And at some point, I want to, like I said, I want to data drive this so that I have them all. But at least for now, we're going to pick on the defaults. Okay, so couple failures. Okay, so let's take a look, see at which ones failed. Context menu. Oh, context menu isn't going to work because you can't dump a context menu at the root. So we'll just drop that one. Okay, next up. Repeat button failed, and tab item's another one that's not going to work. Because the tab item has to be in a tab control. Okay, so repeat button is the interesting one. Okay, and repeat button fails because it doesn't have its own style. So we're going to drop it too. Basically, and this is where it's, if I had this more data driven, because we don't have a material design theme .repeat button .xaml, it's underneath the button ones. Yeah, so it's like, I would have to add more parameters and do extra stuff. Okay, so in reality, all of these should pass because we just deleted all the failing ones. Easiest way to make a test pass, delete it. It can't fail if it's not there. Because this test is really just to give me bare minimum warm fuzzies. Yeah, and these tests are mildly slow because on each test it has to start a whole nother process, which starting process is kind of slow. But it's the only way I can guarantee that if I reload my app.xaml, it's going to work. Okay, so these are all good. There's the fix. Everyone's happy. I'm happy. I don't know if everyone's happy. Okay, we're going to do that. We did, let's see, we fixed the white space here by wrapping the line. Great. That's fine. Jump down here. We got rid of the obsolete attribute that wasn't doing anything. Great. We then dropped the based on, which is what was causing the problem. Great. Ship it. We revved our package versions. Also good. Okay. So fix, and then I've already forgotten my issue number. 3049. Let's see. This test ensures that at least many of the basic controls can load their default styles in isolation without needing to pull in all of MDIX. So for MDIX is spelled MDIX, not MDIC. Okay, so do that, push, and then we're going to drag there to there, start pull request, start pull request to mine, and then fix, boom, about ensure control styles load in isolation, fixes, pound, boom, create pull request. Yeah. And then this goes into the milestone. And then we're going to enable auto merge, confirm auto merge, and we're going to let that guy run for a little bit. Q, because that'll knock that out, and then we will see about this. Nikolai's issue will probably be the last one that makes it into this thing, and then I intend to kick 480 out probably before the end of the week. We'll see how things go. I can even bump this password keyboard focus thing out a little bit too. I don't know. Nikolai, if you're watching this and you want me to wait because you think it's critical, just ping me. But I know there's a few fixes in 4.8 that people are waiting for. One of the key ones that went in the other day was from Tyler Long, because this issue has cropped up a number of different times. People have run into this situation where they're using the dialog host, and specifically it occurs when you're using remote desktop. We've seen other reports that I think are likely similar where people like do lock screens or similar, and then they come back and they're left with a screen like this. The pop-up is closed, but the overlay is still present, which is really annoying. So we believe we have it fixed. We've got a UI test in place for it. We at least fixed the one case we knew how to reproduce. So that much should be fixed. So that is definitely going into the release notes to be flagged, and that will go there. Okay, so let's talk brain teaser. Let's talk brain teaser. Okay, so here's the brain teaser for anybody who missed it earlier. This guy is pushed out to the repository. I still need to get his README written up and a video recorded and all that stuff for it. So if you're watching the stream live, you get to see them on the fly. So, but the brain teaser is quite simple. We've got a unit test up here that is calling numbers get values. And a passing unit test is any test that does not throw an unhandled exception. Okay? I'll say that one more time. A passing unit test is any test that does not throw an unhandled exception. All of the assert methods that you're used to in your testing library of choice, all these methods do is they throw an exception if their expectations aren't met. Right? So assert equals will throw some sort of assertion exception if the two values aren't equal. So quite simple. So the question, though, is this test is currently throwing an exception. And if we look, it is not surprising. It is throwing an argument null exception. Right? So the question is, can you make this test pass by only editing the contents of the getValues method, but you are not allowed to edit anything above line 19? You can only edit stuff within this method below not line 19. So that's what you have to work with. So you can delete this, change this, figure out what you want to do. For anybody who doesn't want a spoiler, you've got about 5 seconds to pause the video before I spoil the ending. Okay. So hint number one for this, if you haven't come across it yet, is the return type right here. That's the first hint. IEnumerable can be a little bit special at times. Specifically, and this is an interview question that a lot of people like to ask. So if you are on the job hunt and going around, especially if you're applying for a .NET job, brush up on your link. And the magical word that the interviewer is looking to hear is called deferred execution. So IEnumerables don't necessarily execute right away. Specifically, they execute at the point where they're iterated. So if you want to declare your own iterator method, you use the yield method. So something even as simple as yield break ends up causing this test to pass. So we went from red to green. You can see the test is now in a green state. Ignore this little circle. This is not the live unit testing explorer. This is we can change it to green. We'll just flip it over. We'll run the slow test. Boom, green circle. So the kicker being that IEnumerable methods don't actually do anything, because you'll note this guy here, this is actually returning an IEnumerable of int, right? So e. And so the test is passing because even though we've invoked this method and we've passed in a null, when you have an IEnumerable return type and you use the yield keyword inside of it, the compiler no longer treats this like a regular method that gets invoked and returns a value. Instead, it sets it up as an iterator method, where when this enumerable is invoked, it then starts executing the method until it hits the first yield keyword. So either a yield break or a yield return. Yield break just says, oh, enumerable's at the end, have a nice day. Yield return obviously returns a value, and then that enumerator stops and waits there until the next time a value is asked for, and then it kicks off from that same point where it left off and continues executing. Really powerful. You can do some awesome stuff with this. So this test actually then starts failing. If we just do a for each, now we immediately go back to throwing our argument null exception. Because now we've actually started asking for the value. So in reality, this is if you were to implement an iterator method, this is the incorrect, despite this being the answer to the brain teaser, this is the incorrect way to implement an iterator method. Because quite often with, thanks Justin Bieber, quite often with iterator methods, there's two parts to them. You want your precondition validation. So in this case, validating that the parameter is non-null. And then you want the deferred execution. So typically you want to do your validation immediately as soon as the method's invoked, but then you want the process of actually getting the values, that can be deferred, right? It's like I want to execute this part of my method immediately, but everything down here I want to execute a little bit later. So the proper way to implement one of these methods when you need that separation between precondition checking and deferred execution is you do your precondition checking up here, and then you actually implement some people do as a private method alongside. I like it as just something, a local function. So you can do something like get values implementation, right? And then this gets your yield break. And then up here, what you do is rather than using the yield keyword in the actual get values method, what you do is you do a return get values implementation. Right? So now you'll note that now my test properly goes back to failing because this test is just straight bad, right? Like I pass null. My test says null, it does not throw, but in reality, my precondition says that it should throw, right? So now I get my precondition checking at the moment the method's invoked, but I've deferred the actual getting of the values until later. So if you're writing your own iterator methods that have precondition checking, you want to be familiar with IEnumerable and deferred execution. And then also be aware of this this common separation between effectively the outer method and the inner method. There is a wonderful resource on this, and I hope it's still live. Yes, perfect. So, yeah. So if this is something that came out, John Skeet, which most people have probably heard the name before, when Link first came out, so you'll know the date on this is 2011. Just so we're like, this is old. But when Link first came out, he went through and started re-implementing the Link methods by hand as a way of learning and showing how Link works. So if you want a nice deep dive in understanding Link and how it works, this is a awesome little write-up. Do be aware, because of how old it is, there have been substantial improvements in Link in the source code. So John Skeet's implementations on a lot of these methods is very simplistic, but it matches the behavior of the real implementation. The real implementations have started taking advantage of various things like spans so that they don't have to have extra allocations. So even though his thing is behavior equivalent, the actual link implementations in like .NET 6 and 7 have had quite a few performance improvements done to them. So this is an amazing set of blog posts to read through to understand how link works. This will give you a really strong understanding of all of these ones. And there's some of them. Occasionally, I've referenced people to these just as when they're saying, "Wait, why does first or single and all of those work that way?" Well, here let's take a look. Let's see how you might implement these things together. So, really great setup. Really great set of blogs. I believe what I saw here. There's also a PDF or similar or something. Oh, GitHub link. Was this on GitHub now? Oh, this is the source code for it. Oh, cool. Cool. So that's probably worth checking out as well. Like I said, again, this thing hasn't been touched in, well, at minimum 4 years. So it's worth reading for understanding, but understand that the implementations won't necessarily match the real ones. So with that, I think I'm probably going to call it for tonight. Get out close to on time, as it were, even though I'm horrible at that. So with that, I will tell everybody happy coding. Thank you for coming and hanging out. As always, hope that people are interested. If you like the brain teasers, check out the YouTube links. There's a playlist. It's awesome. There's fun stuff in there. This one will get posted in the next day or two, and then a video will get queued up. Like I said, the brain teaser videos are coming out Wednesday mornings every week. As long as I have a new one. I'm sure at some point I'm going to run out of new ones. I'll probably run out of material, but at the moment I've got plenty of them. So always nice seeing you, Justin Bieber. Everyone, happy coding. See everyone next time.